first and foremost, you're an artist and a human and not a product. And this is what I really appreciate about the punk rock DIY scene. And I mean, still, there are people trying to make a living out of music. And of course, music should be valued. And when it comes to value, money is always around the corner, of course. But the DIY punk spirit is always helping each other out.
You're listening to Creatives Prevail, unraveling the stories of creative professionals.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creatives Prevail. I'm your host, Mike Zimmerlich, and my next guest is Basti from the German punk band Melonball. In this interview, we discuss why it's important to think through your release strategy, touring plan, and who's a part of your team. We also talk about their latest album, Take Care. Let's get into it. Hey, Basti, how are you?
Thanks, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really do appreciate it. I'm very, very excited because I don't often get to talk to a band that is from overseas. So I always appreciate when I can have, so especially in the punk scene too, right? You don't necessarily think, like most of the time it's American based, right? For like, you know, punk, pop punk rock music. So I'm always excited to talk to someone from a different country that does that kind of music.
Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's awesome. Super honored to be on your podcast. And I think when you say you don't get the chance to talk to overseas bands, I think it's kind of a cool thing because it makes the punk scene get more closer together. And this is something we actually learned, that the punk scene or the scenes are in some way connected all over the world. And I think that's the coolest thing.
It truly is. In fact, I had the opportunity to speak to a Polish punk band last year, and so and they were absolutely amazing. So it always is amazing, and an honor opportunity to talk to bands that are overseas. And like you said, it is I discovered over the years that the more that you go out there and the more that you reach out to others and to other communities, it's amazing to see how truly small it really is. Like everyone ends up knowing each other, even across the globe. When everyone has a same interest and passion in something, it really is a tight-knit community in the end.
And I think it shows that, like, okay, so when we started the band, or even going back way further, when I started making music, it was never about being like, you know, I want to tour the world. And it was just about making music and having fun with friends. And I think playing punk rock overseas now is the same thing. You play music and meet a couple of friends, and that's awesome.
So what was the first instrument that you played? Because you mentioned that you love playing with friends.
So the first instrument I've ever learned, I have to be honest, was the flute. But
okay.
That is really common in I think in Germany maybe it's to play like the flute when the parents say like, oh, let's put him in a group where he can play the flute, and that's cool. I hated it. It was I really didn't like it. And then the second instrument I started to discover, I would say, was piano. But it like from 6 to 12 I was struggling to learn it because I never felt that the piano talked to me. I mean, I was okay, but a friend of mine, he said, I'm playing guitar, and it would be a super cool thing to like do a band, and you know what, you can play bass guitar. And it's like, what's a bass guitar? It's like, it's a guitar with 4 strings. It's not that hard. Here my father, he has an old bass guitar. You can practice it. And it turned out it was a 1974 Fender Precision bass, like the real thing, like a neck this thick, as big as my face. And that instrument, that talked to me. I immediately got hooked. I had the bass at home for like 2 years. I played and I kind of teach it myself. I listened to a couple of music records. It doesn't necessarily was punk. It was everything. And I started to like play by ear. And at one point, I think, was it my mother? She said, you know what, I think you're into this instrument. Maybe you should get some lessons. And then I got lessons. I got lucky enough, and at the school they also picked up that I like the bass guitar, and they said, you can't learn the bass guitar here at the school, but you have to learn upright bass. And so I also learned upright bass, and this was my real first, connection to music, to handmade music, was bass and upright bass, I'd say.
So if you're playing upright bass, were you in a bunch of jazz groups?
Yeah, it was an orchestra at first, and then a jazz group, and I think it was like a super embarrassing Dixieland jazz band, and yeah. But then a friend of mine asked me, "Do you also want to play in a funk band?" And then I got back to the electric bass, and so these were my first band experiences. It all revolved around the school context, but bass. Bass was my instrument. Still is. I love to play bass.
That's amazing. So, moving forward to today for a second, Melonball, I understand, performs over 40 shows a year, which is quite a bit. And I'm very curious, especially performing music for as long as you have, what to you constitutes a great performance?
I think, first off, I think every musician has to answer that question for himself. But if you ask me specifically for Melonball or for my standards, I'd say, first off, have fun. Like, you always have to go on stage and have fun, because that's the best thing you can do is to go on stage, not overthinking stuff. But at a certain point, you want to make it as fun as possible, but also look as well. Professional is a big word, but so when people come to your show and you're honored enough to play in front of a couple of people, you want to give them the best show possibly, like playing wise, show wise, sound wise, whatever. And I think it's a mixture between, you can tell that a band has fun on stage, you can tell that the band can actually play, and well, it's punk. And then I think when the audience are getting, into the vibe and digs the music, and then you get back the energy from the audience, and I think when it's this cross connection, I think that makes a great show.
Absolutely. Now, was Melonball your first project? It sounds like that you've been in bands before that, or was this your first one?
My first real punk band, I'd say, it was a bunch of friends, and we started playing, and we were really bad, and it was a fun thing, and we were just playing and goofing around local wise, and I had a couple of bands, and I'd say Melonball was the first band I really took seriously. And couple of others from the band are actually also, they had bands, also they have bands right now, and also play in other bands. Ollie, our singer, she's been in different projects. She was involved in also in jazz and rock and everything, and she was in a choir. All that different background we're bringing to the table all kind of gets mixed up in the Melonball sound. But I digress. Yes, I had a couple of bands, but not as I never took them as seriously as Melonball.
Interesting. Is there a reason particularly why? Is it because the fact that everyone had different aspects of their bring to the table, or just everyone's approach to this project was different in comparison to other projects?
I think it kind of grew because we came together, wrote some songs in the rehearsal space, and then we developed a set, and then then came COVID, so we weren't able to actually play live. And then when we had the chance to play live, we really got the feeling that we're clicking on stage and that it's super fun to perform and to play. And then we kind of took it from there, and it developed into, okay, this is something I really want to follow through. I really want to take seriously.
So how did you all meet to begin with? Like, how did that come about?
Obviously, Melonball revolves around Punk Rock Holiday, because and on Punk Rock Holiday you have that drink Melonball. It's a cocktail, and it's also a virgin cocktail if you like that. And we met there, like we knew each other briefly from the town, from Nuremberg, where we are based. And we got to talk, and we discovered that we all like the same style of punk rock, and that we are trying. There was just that idea. Let's do music, and we did. And yeah. Fast forward, we had a couple of lineup changes. The current lineup we have right now is 3 parts of Melonball are from Nuremberg, and then our drummer Tommy and Vic, our other guitar player, they're from Austria. So the current lineup right now is I would say one of the best versions, or the best version of Melonball we have right now, and it really clicks.
Wow. And how far away is that? What's the distance? Because thinking of my European geography here.
I mean, I don't even realize anymore how far it's apart. I think it's a 5 to 6 hours drive.
Oh, that's not that bad. So in comparison, so being in the U.S., for example, I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona, and Phoenix, Arizona to Los Angeles is about a 5 to 6 hour drive. So
I see.
Out here, that's like 6 hour drive. Nah, that's fine. That's nothing. So
that's always the fun thing that I want to say Northern Americans say. They say like, oh yeah, I'm doing a Euro trip. Today I'm in Paris and tomorrow I'm in Berlin. It's like a small hop. It's like, what the fuck? It's like a 10 hours drive. For Europeans, it's always like, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yep, exactly. So as far as, so that's great that all of you came together from Melonball, and you released your debut album not too long ago, about 3 years ago, from this recording. And so I just want to talk a little bit about how that process came together. You also decided as a group to work with a record label to release your debut album. And can you talk more about why you made those decisions?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we started to write some songs, and the songs came, and we played shows, and then we had more songs, we played more shows, and then at one point we said, okay, I think maybe we have enough songs to actually do an album. And then we started the whole recording process. Since we didn't really know how to, I don't want to say how to do a proper recording, that's wrong, but we had no real idea how to put everything together. So we started with the drums in a proper studio, and we had the bass of the drums, so the foundation, so to speak. And then at home, from time to time, we were recording, guitar tracks, bass tracks, and then after we had the rhythm section, so to speak, together, we were reaching out to a friend of ours who has a studio here in Nuremberg, and then, hey, we have that project, we have that songs, and everything is coming together. Do you want to do the vocals with us? And so we had that, drums over here, vocals over there, bass and guitars at home, and then we found an engineer who was willing to do the mixing and the mastering and all of that. And suddenly we had, okay, now we have 10 songs. What to do now? Shall we release them? And during that time we came acquainted to Lockjaw Records, based in the UK, and because we had friends, similar friends in the bands we were hanging out with. They also released their albums on Lockjaw as well. And they asked us, maybe we can do something together. And we were talking to Lockjaw, and during that time also Bruno and Cynthia from Thousand Island Records in Canada also reached out to us. And at first we thought like, come on, why on earth would anybody want to work with us, like label wise, and is this even real? And we looked at the artist roster of Thousand Islands and on Lockjaw, and then we kind of like, are we going to do this like really with a label? And we talked about it within the band, and we decided, yeah, let's do it. And Lockjaw as well as Thousand Island Records, they were super open to any ideas we had. They were supportive from like the very very start. Like everything kind of came really naturally. Like we were all sharing ideas. We had different chat groups bouncing around, like what to do next, what could be a single, what could be this, what could be that, and yeah, everything came together really good and really cool. And then we set up a release plan. We were organizing the pressing with pressing plans in Europe and a pressing plan in Canada, and like everything a label does, but it wasn't like, okay, now we have a label, now we can like do nothing and let do the label all the work. It was a real division of labor, I'd say. And shout out to Ollie, our singer. She's the best when it comes to organizing, because like when it comes to organizing, you want to have an Ollie in your band, because she's brilliant. She like keeps lists and really has her shit, as you want to say, together. And I want to say within that team of Lockjaw, Thousand Islands, and Ollie, we kind of managed to release the album. And it opened a couple of doors, I want to say, like distribution wise, because how else would you be able to release a record in Northern America as well as in England? I think you can also order our stuff in Australia, which is cool.
Nice.
We got the German section of the distribution kind of covered. And when I say distribution, it's like literally, hey, record store, this is our album. Do you want to have it? And yeah, we also did that. And then we toured and we toured and we toured. And through the touring, we realized that, when you want to sell records right now in punk rock, best thing to do is play live. And that's how it all came together. Yeah, more or less.
I really appreciate that you mentioned once you got signed to a label, it's not lay back and let them take the reins. You mentioned a perfect example of division of labor. I always let artists know, no, that's when the real work begins. It's not even about it is division of labor, but everything gets amplified. So you are still ultimately going to be ending up to do more work. But the point is that division of labor plus more work is what helps the band become sustainable, or it helps bring in money into the project.
Yeah, and also like exposure. And when I say exposure, I mean like promotion wise. Bruno and Cynthia from Thousand Islands, they well, it's like really cool what they did. They got in touch with Faction Punk in Sirius XM, and they managed to get a track of our album of Breathe into rotation. And the coolest thing, so people would send us little videos on Instagram, said, I'm listening to Melonball on the radio. It's like, what the fuck, in Northern America? That is so awesome. And yeah, I think these are things that are happening much more, I don't want to say easy, because it's never easy, but a little bit more smoother when you have like a label partner, experienced label partner on board. And yeah, that's the best. And division of labor, yeah, because I believe that nobody knows your project and your music better than you as an artist yourself. And that's why the best work always comes from the band end, I think. I at least hope that. I also used to work with a couple of other artists like 10 years ago in a music label, and I always thought that the bands that are really sticking out are the bands that are really good at also promoting and marketing and talking about their project. And I think that's very, very helpful and valuable.
Of course. And yeah, you mentioned that you have a music industry background yourself and have been on the other side, so you understand that the work that's involved representing artists.
Yeah. Yes, I want to say that like not every music and not every music market works in the same way, especially when you look into punk rock. or the major business when you have like huge contracts with a label where you get like an upfront payment and then you have to fulfill certain contracts, and when the album fails you get dropped and it's a whole lot of drama. And I think that's what really gets into artists' head, because I think first and foremost you're an artist and a human and not a product. And this is what I really appreciate about the punk rock DIY scene. And I mean, still, there are people trying to make a living out of music, and of course, music should be valued. And when it comes to value, money is always around the corner, of course. But the DIY punk spirit is always helping each other out. As I said, we're a bunch of friends making music for our friends, and I think this is what makes punk rock and the punk music, I don't want to say industry, it feels wrong, but the whole punk scene
community, I think those are usually better words.
Yeah. That's what makes it special.
I completely agree with you. And for those who listen for a while, know that I've been in the music industry for quite some time now. I kind of look back and go, oh, it's been almost 18 years now that I've been involved in music community specifically. And I discovered that too. I've seen every which way. I have seen the situation that you mentioned where there's a label that gives high pressure to an artist, and the artist doesn't, their album doesn't sell for whatever reason, they get dropped. I've also seen labels that are extremely supportive from day one, whether the album's successful or not. I have seen that too. I've seen also artists on the other side like do crazy things too. So I've seen both sides. I've seen pretty much every imaginable scenario possible. And but like you said, at the end of the day, I would say the majority at this point in time, the majority that at least I personally experience has been very supportive overall. Very artists being supportive of other artists, representatives being supportive of the artists that they work with. That has been the general viewpoint that I've had over the years.
Yeah, I agree.
So I do want to talk about your latest album, so Take Care, which it's amazing. So can you talk more about that album, how that came about, and maybe some differences on the approach of this album in comparison? Because the debut album came out like 3 years ago. So these days, like it's forever and not that long at the same time, especially for album releases,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So the songs from Breathe, we started writing in, I want to say 2019, 2020. So for us, those songs are like the songs that we're carrying along like from day one of the band. And as I said, like writing Breathe was more like a process of months, I want to say years, like from show to show. When we had a song ready, then we played it live, and then we rewrote it because we thought like this part could be cool and this and that, and so it developed. But for Take Care, we specifically said, okay, are we going to do another album? Yes. Okay, cool. So how are we going to approach it? Because we had this year 2024 where we played, I think we played almost 50 shows that year. So we had a huge big schedule. Then 2025 was just around the corner. We also had 40 shows booked for this year. And then we said, okay, so if you want to do an album, we want to schedule it. Not that you can schedule being creative, but we specifically cleared everything besides and said, okay, now we're digging into a writing process. Like everybody is having different ideas. Like you have a riff which you're carrying along in your head for like, I don't know, months or years. You have this and that idea. So we sat down and said, okay, we're starting end of 2024 and 3 months. Let's give us 3 months to write songs. And so that's what we did. And we managed to do a pre-production within that time of a couple of songs we were really glad and really happy with. And then we asked Vic our guitar player, who also is an engineer, to are you willing to like be not only a part of Melonball but also like the producer of the next album? Are you willing to do that? And he agreed. And I think that whole process really kickstarted when the just before the pre-production ended, and we were like, okay, these songs are really cool. How can we approach the whole recording process? And Vic, he really has vision, because first off, so okay, now I'm getting into real details. So
Good.
when I write a song, usually I start with a riff, then I double track that riff, pen it, stereo left and right, start to write a melody straight up in the middle, and then bass and drums programming, and then I have like a layout for a song. And that was that one phone call I had with Vic sharing some ideas, and he said, you know what, let's make it more simple. Not double tracking stuff. Let's just pen it hard, left and right. Rhythm guitar, lead guitar, left and right. No overdubbing, just if there's a need for. And it really changed the whole approach of me writing songs, because suddenly you don't have that, that layer of riffing left and right where you can like put a melody on top. Now you have to write guitar tracks that are playing off of each other left and right, and that really changed my point of view of writing songs. And with that approach, like real organic, like you get what you hear live on stage, like you have two guitars, you have a bass, you have drums, you have vocals. And we wanted, knowing that how much we enjoy playing live, and we wanted to give a raw and really high energetic performance live on stage. Our idea was to take that and put it on a record as raw and as energetically as possible on the record. And we went into the studio, real amps, no digital stuff, like real amps, real microphones, drums, raw vocals. And I think the tricky part was to actually dial out a sound which we can use for the whole recording process of the 12 songs. And once we had that sound down, like how do the guitars left and right sound compared to each other, where's the bass, how should the drums fit into the mix, like all raw, not real mixing, but raw mixes and no master, just a raw thing. And once we had that down, we were like, okay, now we're good to go, let's go, this is what we want. And after like 7 days, the record was done. Like drums, shout out to our drummer
fast.
Tommy, who
That's very fast.
Our drummer Tommy, it took him 3.5 hours to like do all the 12 songs. And then 6 or 7 days later, everything was done. Drums, guitars, bass, vocals, everything. And from okay, let's do a second album, to okay, everything is done, recorded, except for mixing and mastering, I think that 4 months.
Okay.
So we were really focused and tried to capture sort of a certain idea, vision, or status quo, so to speak, of Melonball at that time. And I think we did a quite okay job.
That's saying it lightly. I mean, it's awesome. And I just want to say that I appreciated a number of things that you said. So first of all, tracking in 7 days for a full-length album is for context quite fast when you're doing a recording process. So that's incredible. I also appreciated the fact that how much you and the rest of the project went through the thought process, as far as we want to make sure that the recording sounds like how we are live, and went through that of what that's going to be like. I also appreciate the fact that you mentioned about the writing process itself, that you were using technical aspects such as panning left and right to help you with that. That's something that I have never heard of before. I mean, it might be common. I'm not a songwriter, so maybe they're like, Mike, what are you talking about? That's normal. But I've never heard of that before, so I thought that was very interesting as well, of taking these technical aspects to help actually with the writing process too.
Yeah, I mean, it is common to use that, but it was new for me because when I started writing songs, this was the way how I was like taught, more or less. Like, okay, you need a foundation of riffs and you have to double track it or triple track it or whatever track it, and then you have your melody and the melody goes straight into the center and that's it. But that specific phone call with Vic really opened up something in me, like, okay, there's an easier or lighter way to do it. And I also want to add that when I'm talking about the whole process, it was not just me, it was the whole band. Like, we really sat down and we talked about all that approach, and we talked about the rawness, so to speak, of how to capture the life experience into one record. And it was a band decision, it was a band process.
That's amazing. So what's next for the project? What do you have next for the band?
Yeah, so on February 27th, the record came out. We had 2 release shows in Nuremberg and in Graz, like the hometowns of the band. And next up is a tour. On this Saturday, the tour kicks off with our good friends, the Anti-Queens from Canada. And we play, I want to say, 8 or 10 shows in Germany and Belgium. So, yeah, touring, of course. This is what's next. We have a bunch of amazing shows coming up. Like, as I said, the tour with the Anti-Queens. Then a couple of amazing festivals. First time for Melonball playing in France this year, which is really, really cool. More touring in May and June, and more festivals as well. So yeah, that's what's going to happen. Like, more playing live, and also next year more playing live, because we always experience that the best way to promote your record is always play live as much as possible, and it's fun. It's really cool. Even though touring is exhausting sometimes, and I mean, if you look at the economy in the world, in Europe and Germany, it's getting more and more expensive, but in the end, this is something we want to do, we love, and that's why we're doing it.
I really appreciate you saying that, because there's the discussion now about touring in comparison to social media, right? Is when is the right time to tour? Is that more, how effective is that in comparison to going to social media, where you can reach a lot more people in a very short period of time, in comparison to touring, where, first of all, there's a lot more expense involved in comparison to posting on social media, and also the fact that you are in a certain crowd at any given point in time. And it could be, you talked about earlier on the show about sometimes you're performing in front of like 4 or 5 people, or could be several hundred, several thousand people, depending upon the gig. But I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that, hey, we got an album out, we got to get on the road, we got to tour and get in front of our fans and to get them to experience the music live.
Obviously, I mean, as I said, it's hard for musicians nowadays to play in front of an audience. I want to say, to play in front of an audience, what that means is it's getting more and more expensive. I mean, within the last 3 weeks, the costs of our tour, I want to say, doubled because of the wow, prices of gasoline, which is insane. Suddenly, I mean, you do a calculation of what's touring gonna cost you, and then suddenly, okay, gasoline is skyrocketing. What shall we do now? Nothing. You can just roll with it. And yeah, we're hoping that the turnout of the tour is still cool, and everybody's having a fun time. And yeah, of course, are we a little bit I don't want to say worried, but it's something you see and you acknowledge that it's happening. And I mean, there's so many other bands. I recently read that they really canceled European tours. Yeah, they said, okay, we did a breakdown of all the costs, and we cannot afford to tour. We will lose money, even though there are sold out shows, even though we will have a good turnout on merch. But if we do this, we will lose money, so we have to cancel it, and that is a shame. And I think this shouldn't. I think this should be happening. I mean, in Germany, at least you have some grants you can apply for, yeah, touring grants or grants for marketing and album release and whatever. And I hope this is something that musicians always try to at least consider when it comes to like costs. And I mean, this is something your government, let's say, your entity of your country can provide, so why not use it? Because it's the most important thing is to keep a scene going on, to keep culture going on, and of course the punk scene is a small scene with the goal, or the main goal is not to make money, obviously. And I think that's why it's so important that people come out to the shows. Maybe also buy tickets in advance. Sometimes that helps. And in any kind of way, support the music scene. Go to the shows, buy stuff, buy a shirt. Even if you have a shirt at home, buy another one. Maybe it's not because of us, but it's because of the scene. I want to say, because when bands are not able to perform and play and come to the countries, what's the point?
Absolutely. I also mentioned too that thank you for bringing up grants, because that's something that gets often overlooked, and pretty much every country that I've ever seen has some sort of grants that are awarded to the arts, including touring musicians. So that's something to always look into, not only within your own country, but other countries as well. I've also seen where other countries will have grants specifically for foreign bands to come to their country to tour and to perform, because obviously it helps their economy too. It helps cross promote multiple different countries at the same time. So I have seen that as well. So not only within your own country, but also look into other countries as well and see what programs are out there that you can take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were lucky enough to tour in the UK in 2024, or was it 2023? Also with the help of a grant, which was cool, because it makes your life a little easier, a little bit.
For sure. All right, so we can start wrapping things up here. I do have a couple of fun questions for you. So the first question I have. First question I have for you is, what was the very first concert that you ever went to?
Do you want the cool answer or the real answer?
The real answer. You can also give the cool answer too if you want, but I want the real answer. Okay,
so the very first concert I went to was actually a school concert. So I went to a school that supported music and arts especially, and everybody was learning an instrument, and there's once a year there's a big get together where everybody's playing stuff and everybody's bad and everybody's embarrassed of playing. And I think that this was my first concert. What I really saw as a concert, not a bunch of friends playing, but I want to say my first rock concert, it was quite late. I think it was Melonball at the age of 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you say that's late. I was a very late bloomer. I didn't start going to concerts until I was well into college. So when I was in high school, I never was really into live music really at that point. I was more of that band geek. I played the trumpet, so I was part of that world, but never really into the rock world until well into college at that point. So
I was way too young. I didn't know the band quite well. I think I just knew that No Cigar song. You know, No Cigar, everybody knows that song. I love Melancholy, and don't get me wrong, but this is what I knew. And then I was underage, so a friend of mine, he had a copy of my mother's signatures, like, I'm responsible for this guy. Please take care. Here's a beer. So, yeah.
Do you have an artist that you right now are listening to that you really like?
I always listen to Bad Religion. Like, if I don't know what I'm listening to or what I should listen to, I always rely on Bad Religion. So these are my all-time favorite heroes. But right now, I recently rediscovered Dead to Me. I saw them, I think it was in 2006 or 7 in Germany. They were touring with Pennywise and Bouncing Souls and whatnot. And they had that album out, Cuban Ballerina, I think. And a friend of mine, she mentioned recently, oh yeah, I'm going to see Dead to Me. They're playing nearby. Do you want to come? And unfortunately, I'm not available at that date. But it made me think, oh yeah, Dead to Me. What a great band. And now I'm re-listening to all the Dead to Me albums again, 20 years later.
Wow. I really appreciate they mentioned Bad Religion earlier. I was on a Bad Religion kick for a long time. I haven't listened to them in a while, though. It might be time for me to revisit them. So that's a good one.
Always.
All right, last question for you. If you were only able to give one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Be kind to each other. Just listen to the people you're talking to. Listen to the people you're hanging out with, and ask if they're doing okay, and be kind.
Yeah, we need to hear that more often, don't we? It's just be kind to others, and I could not agree more. So speaking of which, I want to say how kind of it is for you to be on the show. So thank you so much for being here. It really does mean a lot. And I'll make sure that we will put in the show notes for the latest album. It's awesome. Take Care. So it's super cool. We'll have everything in the show notes, how to check out Melonball. So please, everyone, check out their music. And if you happen to be near a town that they're touring, go ahead and check them out too. But thank you again so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. Awesome. Thanks.